Well, welcome everyone to the Cambridge Health Tech Associates webinar today. This is Dawn Van Dam. I'm the General Manager of Cambridge Health Tech Associates. And the title of our webinar today is called Life Sciences Consulting, Leveraging Our Scientific Expertise to Improve Your Bottom Line. And I'd also like to introduce to you Brian Murphy. So Brian, I'll let you say hello and introduce yourself.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is Brian Murphy. I'm the Business Development Manager for Cambridge Health Tech Associates, and I welcome you all here today.
Great, thanks, Brian. So I'm just going to move to our first slide here, I think.
Oh, Janine, can you pass the ball over to Dawn so she can flip the slides?
Oh, there we go. And we're just checking to make sure everyone can hear, and it sounds like, oh, now I'm the presenter. Good, excellent, thank you, Janine. Janine is our community manager, by the way, managing both the Drug Safety Executive Council and Next Generation Sequencing Leaders. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Perhaps I'm just having a little bit of trouble figuring out. There we go. I got it. Thanks. So we're going to talk to you today about how we can help you move forward in improving your bottom line when it comes to the consulting that we offer. And we'll also give you a brief overview of our two other areas where we can help you out. That would be technology evaluations and our online communities. So the first thing is I have a question for everyone out there in the audience, and this is also just to ensure that you can send me some messages or send all of us some messages via the chat box. So if you can locate the chat box in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, I'd like you to think about this question I'm going to ask you in a moment and just put in your answer in the bottom right-hand corner there. And that way, as we go along, if you have other questions or ideas that you want to send to us, particularly questions that we can answer towards the end, we would love to have your questions today, because that will help make it more interactive and more interesting for everyone as we move along. So the question right now is, when we think about today and the science of healthcare, we're looking at things like, drug discovery, of course, preclinical safety, high content analysis, next generation sequencing, genomics, bioinformatics, biomarkers, stem cells, so it just goes on and on and on. Their list could go forever. So my question to everyone, and if you can go to the lower right-hand corner to answer it, is as follows. Are things getting easier for you? So with all this great science that's happening out there, are you finding that things are getting easier for you? So if you can just put in a yes if you think things are getting easier for you, and if you can put in a no if you think things are not getting easier for you, that would be great. So I'm seeing some information coming in here. No, there's more complexity and new tests. No, with a double exclamation marks. So yeah, if you could just put in your answers, that would be great. And then the flip side of that question is, are things getting harder for you? And what we typically find, and we're getting a lot of responses that meet this, is that things are getting harder for all of us. So despite the fact that there are new technologies and there's new science and things that should be making discovery easier, we actually find that they're getting harder. So please do put your answers in there. I still would like to hear from all of you as to what you think is happening out there and why things might be not as easy as we would think they would be, despite the fact that we have lots of science at our fingertips and in our hands. So to tell you how we help address that, there's three things that Cambridge Health Tech Associates offers, and that would be our consulting services. We do technology evaluations, and we have a number of online communities. But just to give you a bit of a perspective about who we are a sister company to Cambridge Health Tech Institute, or CHI, who puts on conferences. So a lot of you probably know about Cambridge Health Tech Institute, and you've attended our conferences, or maybe you've been a speaker at the conferences. But being associated with Cambridge Health Tech Institute really provides us with an inside track to the trends and the issues in the marketplace. So in order to ensure that you have the best speakers and the best information at every conference, we're all out there constantly doing research to find out what the trends are and where things are moving in the industry. And that gives us, on this side, the Cambridge Health Tech Associates, as the commercialization side of the business. That's what we really specialize in, is helping you and helping organizations commercialize what you have to offer. It gives us kind of that inside track to know what's hot out there from a speaker perspective and a conference perspective. So a little bit more about us. We specialize at Cambridge Health Tech Associates in the drug discovery and development space. And with that, we have a database of over 900,000 individuals from around the world who all work in the drug discovery and development space. And that covers pretty much every discipline, whether it be academics, people in the government, labs, biotech, pharma, hospitals, venture capitalists, so everyone across the board. And through that, and over 9 years of experience that we have in this industry, we have a phenomenal long-standing history of doing technology evaluations and working with thousands of technology vendors to help them in many, many ways. And we're going to cover off some of those examples with you in the next few minutes during this webinar. And in actual fact, our expertise is extremely deep. We have over 9 years implementing consulting projects, over 7 years implementing or conducting collaborative technology evaluation projects, and over 6 years building online communities where we're helping organizations push out their messages, be thought leaders, and communicate to the various audiences out there. So some really exciting things that we've been able to accomplish over the last while. More recently, I joined as the new general manager of the organization back in the November-December timeframe, and over the last 6 months, I've had a very unique and phenomenal opportunity to meet many of you face-to-face at the various conferences that we attend. And through that, I've conducted over 300 interviews with many of you offering up very generous amounts of your time to participate in this research. And the research, again, has covered pretty much every area of science, including things like biomarkers, stem cells, drug safety, next-generation sequencing, genomics, and more and more and more. And we'll be publishing the results of those research studies and the findings over the next while. And we'll do it in summary form to our full audience, and to those who participated in the research, they'll get a more detailed report of the findings. But what we're finding is that there's some significant major trends and challenges and opportunities that everyone has been able to share with us, which, as I said, we'll be releasing over the next couple of months. One of the things that everyone does know, however, is that there really has been what I'd like to call a tectonic shift in healthcare science and discovery. Things have opened up and changed, I think, beyond any of us our wildest dreams and what we would have believed would have happened. As we know, there's been major downsizing that's happened over the last 2 to 3 years, and it continues with even more recent announcements with some organizations closing whole facilities and things like that. And a lot of that has been driven by a desire to increase efficiencies, but because the changes are so new, and because we have not yet figured out how to incorporate all these new technologies into the science of drug discovery and research, all of the efficiencies that everyone would like to have not yet been realized. And this is, of course, still frustrating, and still why we need to be looking at it so closely and so intimately in order to make sure we can help facilitate this moving forward. So the industry is still looking for new solutions. I wouldn't say that downsizing is the only solution. We need to look for some more creative solutions, some more proven solutions, and this is what everyone is trying to do. And really what we hear in talking to everyone is the industry is using new models which are helping them be more flexible and be more adaptable to the changes, and hopefully realize those efficiencies and realize more productivity and how many drugs come out and quicker turnaround times, et cetera, et cetera. One of the areas that really is quite profound and quite nicely fits in with our experience with doing collaborative technology evaluations and other projects is that people are looking for more and more virtual models and more collaborative business models. so that if multiple organizations work together on a project, they can all save money and they can all share the science and they can all be smarter, faster, and better. So one of the excuse me, things that I wanted to highlight was a recent article that you may be aware of, and that is it was published recently in the Boston Globe, and it was actually announced at the BIO conference, which happened about a month ago. But what it talks about here is that drug firms seek new ways to do business. And I'll just read you the first paragraph. Biopharma companies, under mounting financial and regulatory pressure, have stepped up experimenting with new collaborative business models to share the cost and the risk of drug discovery and bring more treatments to market. While drug makers have been merging and striking research partnerships for years, several twists were discussed at last week's Biotechnology Industry Organization Convention, or BIO as we know it, which drew over 16,000 industry leaders to Boston. These approaches could pioneer new ways of doing business and finding treatments for diseases. So one of the quotes from that article is that people talked about the fact that companies are becoming more virtual drug makers and that they're looking to outsource operations, things ranging from research and drug testing to clinical trials and manufacturing, to using outside parties that can perform such functions cheaper and better. And in actual fact, about 5 years ago, I think it was, we did a project with a number of pharmaceutical companies where we took ourselves and a number of them to China to evaluate some of these new outsourcing solutions in order to see if they would be ready for this change, which is now underway for the whole industry. So that was an early collaborative project that we did, as I said, with a number of pharmaceutical companies and with a number of organizations in China to sort of see what were the rules that should be put in place, how should we operate, what were the benefits, what were the pitfalls, and that was a sort of a combination technology evaluation, vendor evaluation, consulting project that we did, as I said, a number of years ago. And it's interesting that it's come to fruition in these times that we're going through today. Additionally, in that same article that was published in the Boston Globe was another story about Massachusetts state officials announcing that they're supporting the collaboration trend, and they did this by, as they said in the article, corralling 7 drug companies into forming a novel neuroscience consortium. So this is, again, a trend that we've been very much involved in, having done almost 20 collaborative consortium projects over the last while. So we see this as accelerating, and we're really looking forward to working with many organizations and helping them collaborate, whether it be with academics, organizations in industry or industry and vendors, et cetera, et cetera. But it's really part of a very strong trend that we see going forward right now. And again, the last piece from the article was that they talked about these collaborations, and they said that much will depend on how the partnerships are managed and whether their contracts are drawn up in a way that prevents fights over intellectual property. And we've seen that over the years with the projects that we've worked on, and therefore have put in very strong contracts to make sure that this is a solid base as we move forward. So let me just talk just for a moment about our technology evaluations, because they often involved a large component of consulting as well, and that's what we're here to talk about today. But technology evaluations, as my first question hinted at, is that it's really important to ensure that the science of healthcare continues to move forward. And in order to do that, technology evaluations are really, really critical. And so despite the fact that it's becoming, let's say, more stressful, that things are becoming more challenging because we have more technologies to look at, without those new technologies, we're not going to be able to move forward and get those efficiencies that we're looking for. So really, in our technology evaluations, we do reach out to the industry, to vendors, and or to academia together to evaluate new scientific advancements and to accelerate discovery and development and help make things move forward in a more expeditious manner. So one of the things we do to support those technology evaluations, and that fits in with our consulting and market research practice, is we do some yearly surveys of industry trends. So one of the yearly surveys that we do is we do a technology adoption survey, and through that we're asking people what technologies are new in your organization that you've implemented in the last year, what technologies are you looking at implementing in this next year, and then which ones kind of have you taken off the plate and you're not interested in any further. So that one has been a long-standing survey that we've been doing, and we're hoping that all of you will take the time to participate in that when we do this year's survey again. A newer study that we've implemented would be one on next-generation sequencing and genomic analysis, and particularly as it looks at genomic interpretation. And this is a full stakeholder study that we're doing with probably somewhere between 50 and 100 people across the industry. And oftentimes we do these studies both from a qualitative perspective, where we do the in-depth interviews that I mentioned before, where I've had the opportunity to talk to about 300 people over the last while. And then at times we'll also do quantitative analytical data collection and benchmarking if that's what's required in order to get a more definitive look at the marketplace from that perspective. Another area that helps support our consulting practice is our professional communities. And through our professional communities, we have two of them. We have Drug Safety Executive Council right now, and we have another one called Next Generation Sequencing Leaders, and we have more underway that we're planning on launching over the next while. But they really help improve the communication, the knowledge sharing, and the networking within the profession. So it's a way for us to get a handle on what's happening in the marketplace, for us to ask quick questions and get some feedback and go from that perspective. I see that one person has just asked when will the new next generation sequencing survey results be available. And we're looking to have those available in the fall. So we're just finishing up the research now, and we'll be compiling that with our other partner organizations. So for instance, we're working with the Personalized Medicine Coalition and another company called Genome Quest, and we'll be looking at putting those results together and launching them in the fall. So hopefully that gives you a good perspective on things. But just finishing up on our communities, if you haven't seen them before, the Drug Safety Executive Council and Next Generation Sequencing Leaders, please do go have a look, and they are free to join. They're open to everyone, and we'd love you to participate, post a question in the discussion forum, perhaps send us a blog that you want to issue up there, but it's with the involvement of the whole community that we'll all learn a lot quicker and a lot faster. Through those professional communities, there's lots of ways for everyone to contribute, but what it helps us with, and therefore allows us to help you, is it helps us see the trends and how people make their decisions. It helps us understand the market players and their needs, and it gives us really a pulse on the people's interests and where they're thirsty for knowledge and for further information. So kind of the reason to tell you all this is that we have lots of ways to ensure that we are as smart as we can be, so that we can help you be as smart as you can be in making your decisions in the marketplace. So whether it be through the consistent technology evaluations that we do, through the partnerships that we have with the pharmaceutical and biotech industry when they're part of our technology evaluation consortiums, or whether it be through the online communities, we're out there meeting you, talking to you, and learning what the trends are in the industry. And that kind of is a summary of our consulting practice. We like to take the data that we get from all these different sources and add to it our expertise in the industry, and I'll get back to that in a minute and tell you some more about our scientific experts that we have on board with our team. And that, we find, really provides you some superior insights and results. We're able to not only tell you what's happening now, but what's happened historically, and give you the perspective of our experience as we join with you in creating a project and helping you decide how we can help you move forward and help you be more successful in generating revenue and in improving your bottom line. And really, all these insights kind of help us create an optimal framework for the best solutions that can be brought to bear on the questions that you're looking at considering in the marketplace. Where do people often use our consulting experience? They use it across the board, but let's say you're looking for more staffing flexibility, you don't have experienced marketing, strategic planning, operational or product development resources, and you need a short-term supplementation of that, that's where people have often used us. Often people are using us just for our sheer experience and knowledge. Again, if you haven't worked in a particular market, that's where we can give you a great perspective on where that market's headed and the changes that we see and how those changes parallel other changes that have happened in similar markets over the years. And of course, we can give you lots of help in our expanding your contacts because of our database of over 900,000 individuals. And as I said, whether that be senior leaders, whether it be bench scientists, whether it be government, academia, whatever it might be, it's a real great way for you to get a more broad perspective on what's going on out there in the industry. So let me just highlight a little bit about our team because that's important for you to know that we bring to you lots of experience. Myself, I have over 25 years working in the biopharmaceuticals industry, both on the industry side in management positions, everything from biopharma to hospitals to physicians to patients, and then also on more the supplier side, selling products and services back to the industry, including device and diagnostics and medical communities, et cetera, et cetera. So having worked on both sides gives a great perspective and allows all of us here to kind of think things through more logically for you and bring you better solutions and better results. We also, of course, have Brian Murphy, and he'll come back and talk to you in a few minutes. But Brian has over 10 years in the life science industry, and you'll get a flavor for his background when he talks and talks to you through some of our case studies. Allison Serrano, she also has over 10 years working in marketing and communications. She's our marketing manager. And Janine Hawley, who I forgot to put on this slide, but she's our community manager. She keeps us all active and participating in the communities from that perspective. And then we also have a staff of subject matter expert consultants and resources that we can tap into wherever we may need it. But I wanted to also highlight to you two of our scientists. First, I wanted to highlight Dr. Ernie Bush. Ernie comes to us as an expert in drug safety and development. He has nearly 30 years of biomedical research focused on preclinical safety assessment, but also, very importantly, the navigation, evaluation, and prioritization of biopharmaceutical research initiatives. And Ernie was most recently at Roche. That was his last big pharma opportunity, where he had senior decision-making responsibility all in the preclinical safety area. So Ernie's a great person to both conduct some of the consulting and market research projects that we work on, but also to bounce things off of as we're moving forward. And Ernie is often the moderator for our webinars when it fits his subject matter expertise. We also have another person that I wanted to highlight, Kevin Davies. Kevin Davis is, again, a PhD, and he has phenomenal experience, over 20 years in science, publishing, and research, all in the areas of genomics, next-generation sequencing, personalized medicine, and other technology as it relates to this area. And Kevin Davis has published 3 books, including Cracking the Genome and the $1,000 Genome, and if you haven't read that, that's a great read. And he was also the founding editor of BioIT World, and very importantly as well, when Nature magazine had its first spin-off, that spin-off was Nature Genetics, and Kevin Davis was the founding editor of Nature Genetics as well. And if you want to know what his books look like, there you have it, The Road to the Genome and the $1,000 Genome. And I'm sure Kevin would love it if you went to Amazon.com and bought yourself a copy and see kind of what the trends are and where things are headed. So that's one of the things we're really proud of, is that we have deep scientific expertise that we bring to bear on any consulting project that we would do with you. And given the nature of this webinar, I don't have time to mention all of our scientific experts, but just wanted to highlight 2 of them right there for you. The types of consulting projects that we get involved in are varied, and Brian in a moment will give you some highlights of some specific case studies. But we can usually bucket them into a number of different areas. One area is what I would consider business strategy development, where we help people look at their business plans, including sizing of the market, pricing sensitivity, who are your target customers. We might look at reimbursement and preparation of, startup grants. So kind of getting you ready to be successful and to help you commercialize your opportunities is how I would describe this one here. Another area would be in product development and in technology evaluations. Here we've conducted numerous projects to help people understand the optimal positioning and the value for their new technologies in the marketplace. And this can run the gamut of, a startup opportunity to, hey, you're ready to launch, or maybe you've been in the market for a while and you need to figure out why you're not as successful as you might have been otherwise. So fundamentally, when we do this type of work for you, when we do consulting projects for you, we're really looking at some strong building blocks to help you move forward. And our goals are to help you identify strong areas for change. What are the places where we can suggest to you potential solutions that can help you move forward and be successful, and then also helping you to figure out how to share and socialize those findings and to affect the change, because we don't want to just give you the ideas, we want to also give you the ideas and then help you implement them and move them forward so that you can actually see the results of the work we've done and have the fruits of your success as you're moving forward. So with no further ado, I'm going to ask Janine to turn over the presenter role to Brian, and I'm going to let Brian take over and take you through a number of case studies. But I would encourage you that if you have any questions for either myself or for Brian, we'll be answering those, and please put them into the chat box so that we can get to those as we go on. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Brian.
Great. Thank you very much, Dawn. And I guess I'll just reiterate Dawn's comment about providing questions to us. For the next several minutes, I'll be going over a few case studies of projects we've executed in the past with various companies. But we definitely want to spend some time, addressing any questions or your comments that you may have. So definitely, feed those through the chat portal, and we'll be sure to get to as many of those as we can. So I guess moving on here, we'll just dive right into the first case study. And this one specifically was a vendor of a new drug screening technology. And they had launched a product that they thought was going to be a blockbuster. And unfortunately, after about 1 year, they came to us with a big challenge. They said that after the first year, we forecasted X, and unfortunately, we only produce sales of 10% of what we expected. And so clearly these are not situations where we, ideal situations for us. We love to work with very successful companies, but certainly these are opportunities where we can add our value and really help companies turn it around. And I guess anecdotally, we always like to also mention this case study that we had actually been speaking with this customer about a year or more beyond when they were actually discussing the launch of this product. And we had given some advice and offered to work with them at the very beginning stage, but at that point they decided that they were going to go off on their own, and fortunately or unfortunately, they didn't achieve the results that they were looking for. So what we decided to do is engage in a project where we would basically work with them and identify what exactly happened in this situation. Where did the company miss the market? How can we resolve this and ultimately move forward and be successful? So really the first thing that CHA did is we went on site with our client. We did a very thorough evaluation of the product. In this situation, Dr. Ernie Bush, one of our scientific directors, did his own kind of personal analysis of the product, having been that he was not too long ago actually a buyer and a decision maker for using this technology when he was in large pharma. And so he did his own analysis and did several interviews of executives and marketing folks and salespeople and all sorts of individuals within the organization to really understand what were the offering strengths, capabilities, but also weaknesses and challenges in that respect. And so that was a really good kind of starting point for us to really kind of set the foundation for, all right, what exactly is is the technology, what are the benefits and also risks involved for a potential client. And with that information, we then went out to the marketplace and started setting up interviews with experts within the pharmaceutical industry who were potential clients and users and buyers of that technology, and really did kind of a qualitative overview of what were the for those companies who had maybe looked at that technology, what did they think about it, what were some issues that they saw, what were the benefits that they saw. And so we collected quite a bit of qualitative data. And then with that qualitative data, we then created a broad industry survey for us to gather much more qualitative information that we could then supply back to this vendor. The survey, after it was created, was distributed to one of our CHA communities. And in this regard, the value of the communities for these types of projects is that each of our communities is an opt-in community, and so by nature, the individuals within those communities are much more highly engaged than just a list of people who we're trying to reach out to. And so, so when it comes time to do a survey or set up an interview, those communities become a really great asset, not only for us but also for the clients that we serve. And so basically moving forward, after we had conducted the expert interviews and also the industry survey, we really got a really good sense of a clear picture of what the community wanted. What were the major pain points that they had that this technology was intended to solve. And what we found is that many of the features that the technology vendor had put into their technology were really not the ones that the market was looking for. And so we were very quickly and easily able to find out what were the specific needs for this specific technology, and we were able to provide feedback to the vendors so that they could optimize the technology. And part of the recommendations that we put together were based on a very kind of a process that we call a gap analysis, and it's really looking at the gap between what's the current performance level of the technology and also what's the the desired performance level of the technology. And so through the data that we collected, the interviews and the survey, we very quickly and able to identify what that gap was, and of course share that with our client. So that was one example, and again, as I mentioned, it was a situation where the organization was having a major challenge and wasn't achieving the results that they were looking for. And the difference with case study number 2 is that this was a developer of new technology where they knew that they had something, but it was really kind of unproven. It was kind of a first to the marketplace or a first of its kind type of technology, and so they knew that they needed to be smart about how they were going to move forward with commercializing this new technology. And so they really wanted to understand what were the needs of the marketplace before they finalize their product development. And when you're working in sort of a white space or a brand new market, it is sometimes difficult to to understand those. And so having an objective third-party organization such as CHA really helping in that process is certainly valuable. And so in a very similar manner, CHA performed what we call a 360 evaluation at the customer site. Similar to the first project, we interviewed executives, researchers, marketing, sales, and several other individuals as well. And so, and again, this was allowed us to really understand what the technology was, what in the minds of the company, what was the value that they were providing, what were the challenges that they were looking to solve for their clients. And initially, we provided some feedback for this customer, and what we had noticed is that since this was kind of a new technology, it was sort of amorphous at this point, and it wasn't fully understood by the marketplace, we also noticed that internally the organization was not completely aligned with what their vision was for the technology. And so, in most situations we don't consider ourselves, management consulting type of company, but in this case, we provided a little bit of feedback to let them know that, there was some organizational alignment issues that, should potentially be addressed before moving forward with a complete, go-to-market strategy. And so that was really the first stage. However, we were still able to continue moving forward and collecting data for this client. And so we organized over a dozen expert interviews with key individuals in the industry. And in this case, it was a much different qualitative process. Since this technology was really moving into kind of a white space where there wasn't an existing technology or anything comparable, we really tried to have to understand what were the latent needs of the community. And if you don't know what I mean by latent needs, I guess a recent example of this would be the Apple technology, the iPad, which I think many of you may have. But when the iPad was originally being developed, many people didn't realize why it was being developed. They didn't understand what need it filled. And so, in that case, certainly the iPad was launched, and I know that millions and millions have been sold. So that sort of filled a latent need that people didn't really even know that they had. And so in this case, we were looking for those latent needs and really trying to understand what were the pains that people had that they maybe didn't even realize that they had. And so based on the qualitative interview data that we collected and looking for those latent needs, we then put together, again, a quantitative industry survey. And in this case, we sent it out again to one of our professional communities. In this case, it was the Drug Safety Executive Council, which has over 2,000 pharmaceutical professionals in there. And so we were able to send that out and collect quite a bit of data for our client. And of course, finally, as we do in all of our projects, we prepared a final report and scheduled a meeting for us to sit down with the client, discuss the feedback from not only the company meetings, the 360 interviews that we hosted, but also the expert interviews as well as the industry survey. And so with that, we were able to offer recommendations to capitalize on the company and the product strengths, as well as the market opportunity, and based on the pain points that we uncovered. And then additionally, in this case, since this was sort of a new technology, not well characterized or well known yet by the marketplace, we worked together on a little bit of a campaign to spread some awareness. And so we worked together to announce the results of the survey and this project via press release, as well as a journal article and some other methods to at least begin planting seeds within the marketplace and how what might be coming and how it might be able to serve their needs. So those are two, I guess, recent case studies. I do want to mention that we've conducted quite a few, and so I'll briefly mention a few which are on the screen right now, and then we'll certainly open it up to questions. And I have noticed that a few questions have already started to come in, so definitely please continue to shoot those through, and we'll address them here momentarily. A recent project that we finished also included kind of a market investigation. This technology was a specific biomarker, which was a hot area in the market these days. And so, since there is so much competition in the area and so much need, this company again wanted to, before they invested too much in product development, they came to us to help them understand what the needs of the marketplace were. In this case, it was a very interesting outcome. The idea for the biomarker was, in fact, in vivo technology that they wanted to use. And based on the needs of the marketplace, in fact, we uncovered that the market was looking for more of an in vitro solution as opposed to an in vivo solution. And so this was certainly unexpected data that was collected for this client, and so they really had a bit of a gut check. And what they've decided to do is, in fact, go back to into development and develop an in vitro solution, since that is where the marketplace is moving. In addition, we have worked with directly with pharmaceutical companies, one-on-one with pharmaceutical companies to help them uncover what their potential challenges and needs might be. In one situation, we worked with an organization who sort of needed to step back a little bit and make sure that they were fully up to speed on their preclinical compound screening regimen. And so based on our experience working with many pharmaceutical companies, understanding what trends and issues they're having, we are able to do an evaluation of their regimen, understand which technologies they were using, which processes that they had in place, and really recommend ways that the rest of the industry are handling these types of issues. So that was another example. Most recently, some of you may have seen a press release that we sent out back in, I believe it was April. But most recently, we've launched our consulting practice within the area of next generation sequencing. And so we've already had quite a bit of interest in that area, and we are working with a few companies at the moment. Specifically, we are in the midst of a project where one organization is looking to move from one industry into the NGS area, and really wants to understand what does the competitive space look like, what can they expect once they move into that market, how should their technology be positioned against the competition so that they can ultimately win some of the market share. And so we're in the midst of that project at the moment. As well, last year we conducted a market assessment of a bit of a different kind. This was not specifically a technology that was going to be launched, and in fact, the technology was very widely known. People actually really love the technology. They are very willing to purchase it. But one of the issues that was holding back some of the sales was that this specific software, which is used in GLP setting, required a very significant validation before it could actually be implemented and used in the organization. And so we designed a project with this client whereby we better understood what are the main issues with validation, what is being done, what's not being done, what should be done, what should not be done, and we're able to come back with recommendations on how this client could turn this really large challenge into an opportunity for them to differentiate themselves from other competitors and ultimately gain more revenue and market share. And so that was a very exciting and interesting project. And so, as you may have noticed, the core of many of our projects are quite similar in terms of our process, but the solution areas that we work in are often quite different and diverse, and that's what makes it exciting for Don and I and our scientific directors and our team here at CHA. And so that's something we really enjoy and would certainly love to have conversations with all of you to understand how we might be able to work together. I guess I just want to highlight a few of the advantages of working with CHA. Some of these details have already been mentioned, but I'll just highlight them here. You saw the profiles of some of our scientific directors and may have noticed that we have a high degree of been there, done that type of experience. So it's hands-on experience, not only doing a lot of the work in the industry, but also looking at the industry as a whole and what are the trends there as well. As well, the CHA serves as an independent and objective perspective, and that's something that's really not possible to achieve with in-house resources. Just by definition, using an internal employee or internal department to assess the marketplace, it's looking through a much different lens of just that organization, and so we're able to provide a much more objective perspective that can help all organizations. As well, Don had mentioned the 900,000 life sciences professionals that we have access to through our database, as well as the professional communities that we manage. And so really that's a highly leverageable network of experience and knowledge that we are able to help you leverage and gain the insights and knowledge that you're looking for to help you be successful. And so I think with that, I will we'll stop there. It looks like we have about 15 more minutes, and we would love to hear your questions. We have a few coming in through the chat here that I can see. And so I guess I'll have maybe Dawn, if you would like to field the questions, and then we can kind of address them all from there.
Sure, sure. I'll read them out, Brian, and I'll let you kind of get the first shot at them, and then we'll go from there. I'd also like to tell everyone that if you do have any questions, again, just a reminder to put them in the chat room. But also, we will be putting up a survey as we're going through the questions, and we would appreciate you taking a few moments just to fill out that really quick survey so we can get a handle on how we can help you with anything that you can answer in the survey. So that would be great. So one of the first questions would be, Brian, for you, is what involvement do your scientific staff have in the interviews or surveys or the whole process of the consulting and the research that is done?
That's a great question. Well, I guess the reason that we have our scientific directors aboard is, to be heavily involved in all these projects, and so they are involved from the beginning. As I mentioned, the 360 meetings that we host usually on site with our client, our scientific directors are involved in those. When we then go to the marketplace and talk to experts, our scientific directors are involved in those calls. And not only are they on those calls to listen and hear things that maybe myself with only a bachelor's in science would maybe would not hear, we're also leveraging their relationships in the marketplace as well. And so being able to schedule those interviews, have them on the calls from a scientific perspective to really hear and understand what the challenges are. They're involved in that piece as well. And then in addition, translating the qualitative information learned from the interviews and then creating that survey, they're heavily involved in that as well, just to make sure that there's a constant and continuous flow throughout the entire project. And then as well, our directors also draft the bulk of the final report. Again, just to make sure a continuous, consistent flow throughout the entire project from launch all the way through the final, I guess, presentation and meeting with our clients. So I'm wondering if maybe the question there is, are these folks just on board as more figureheads, or are they actually involved? And I think I've detailed that they're involved, and I guess maybe the concern is that if you work with CHA, that you'll be delegated to some sort of associate or something like that, and that really is not the case.
Great, thanks, Brian. Yeah, I mean we kind of double team everything we do. So there's a person who's a strategy person and a person who's a scientific person who participates all along the way. So I think that's one of the things that makes it really nice. Another question is, can you provide any information about the results on revenue growth from case study 1? It said product launch resulted in 10% of expected revenue, and then Cambridge Health Tech Associates was brought in and we got involved. What was the growth after CHA integrated information and recommendations?
Sure, and I will admit that it was a little bit before I joined, so I don't have the firsthand intimate details. But what I can tell you is, in all of our projects, there's a couple different ways that our clients have handled the recommendations and feedback that we've been able to collect from the marketplace. Number one, I had mentioned one organization that we came back with some, I guess, unexpected information. They decided to go back into development, and they're currently working to develop a solution that is in line with the needs of the marketplace. And in other situations, our clients have taken our recommendations, gone back, looked at their development team, and said, is this need that's been identified, the pain points that have been identified, will our solution meet those needs? And in this case, the case study number 1, what the executive team ultimately decided to do is actually halt that project, and I believe they ended up spinning it off or selling it. And so they decided not to move forward, and so based on that, I guess one might look at that as a negative outcome of the project, but certainly the last thing that any organization wants to do is continue moving forward with a technology that's not meeting the needs of its marketplace. So in our opinion, we saved them a year or several more years of very unprofitable technology for their customers.
Yeah, and in the end, because they sold it, they got some revenue from that perspective. So yeah, it was rather than continue to invest in something that didn't fit with their core competencies, there was an opportunity to bring in some revenue and turn it from that perspective as they sold the asset. So it was very, very interesting because it wasn't exactly what was expected, right?
Exactly, right.
So another question here is, how do you get in touch with your scientific professionals, or how do you find them, or how do you develop your database? So I'll let you jump in and answer that, and then I'll add anything else afterwards.
Sure. Well, I guess I'll go back to one of the very early slides that Dawn had read through. You know, a major advantage that we have is being associated with Cambridge Health Tech Institute, which is the conference company, is that we have you know, access to the database of folks who have who have interacted with CHI. So whether those are folks who've spoken at a conference, attended a conference, considered attending a conference, that database is now I think close. It's over 900,000 or close to 1 million professionals, and it is segmented in various ways based on interests. And so based on whichever company you potentially would like to engage with CHA, we can use that database to again kind of segment it and really go after and find out the needs of your specific target segment based on that database. And so, but as I mentioned before, that database is folks who've certainly opted into CHI activities, but haven't necessarily opted into CHA, Cambridge Health Tech Associates activities. And so that's where our communities also come into play, where folks have joined CHA professional communities to be much more involved in their space within life sciences. And so we also very often leverage those communities in order to engage the marketplace. And how we build those communities is through content. And we host several webinars through those events. We do, as Dawn mentioned, we host discussions, product reviews, all sorts of things. And so what we an analogy we often like to use is that our communities are a little bit like a garden. So we continue to nourish and water those communities and give to the community, and then every so often if we want to pluck some fruit, and what I mean by that is maybe ask them to interview with us for a specific project or to fill out a survey, we found that they're very, very willing to do so. And in fact, the response rates we get for surveys and interviews are, from what I know in the industry, are extremely high. And so, I guess those are a couple ways that we're able to leverage and build the database, which ultimately we can help you leverage, for your own improvement of your product development and improving your revenue as well.
Yeah, I would also add too that given the foundation of 900,000 people, we have a fairly large telemarketing or telesales team, whatever you want to call the group, but they're constantly on the phone with people in the industry, finding out, can you be, can you come and attend? Do you have a budget? What's your interest level? What's your scientific areas of study? So all that information about, their title, their level and seniority in the organization, whether they can actually afford to come to a conference, tells you that they're the more senior people in the industry and tells you that they're more the decision makers. And then on the other side, the people who produce the conferences, they're constantly reaching out to the key opinion leaders who are speakers at the conferences. So again, you have the top level thought leaders and opinion leaders in the database from that perspective. So not to say that we don't have junior people as well, but the majority of people are the important people and the decision makers and the ones with budgetary responsibility. So that makes it really nice as well too from that perspective.
And Dawn, maybe I'll just add a quick comment as well, and certainly not to self-promote, but to go back to Dawn's introduction of me earlier, where I spent 10 years in the biotech staffing area. Even though I've gotten out of the recruiting space, it's hard to shake that. And so, but really, what my life had been prior to joining CHA 2 years ago was knowing who are the experts out in the marketplace within the life sciences field, and how to connect with those folks. And so we leverage, some of my experience in my network as well as Dawn's experience in Dawn's network. And so, so the whole team itself, that's really what our role is to do, is to go out there and find experts who we can leverage and allow to help our clients, either through the communities or through our consulting or in other manners as well.
There's one specific question here that really is perhaps a more general answer is required, but the question is, what is your presence on the West Coast? And maybe I'll just jump in and answer this and say, because one of the things that Brian and I and the rest of the team do is we attend the majority of the Cambridge Health Tech Institute, the CHI conferences. We are in every major city in North America, some of the major European cities, and even in some Asian cities on a regular basis. So it makes it nice from a cost efficiency perspective. We don't have to set up an office and cover that overhead to have an office in every major city around the world, but because we're there attending conferences, we are around the world very often. We do have clients in Europe, in Asia, and all across North America from that perspective. So I guess that's kind of the way to say, you don't really want us to have a full-time office there to cover the overhead, but you do want us to be there to come and meet with you and see you and talk to you about a potential project. So I would say if there's anybody who has that sort of question, just ask us and we'll tell you when we're going to be in the area next time, and if not, we'll do a Skype or webinar. Anything you wanted to add to that question, Brian?
No, I mean, other than just the anecdote that, jokingly we talked about the West Coast earlier this year, and I think by the time the calendar turned to March, we had 6 separate trips already to the West Coast in those just a few couple months. So as Dawn mentioned, we tend to be on airplanes a lot and in different markets on a regular basis.
Yeah. Here's another specific question, and again, I might jump in with the answer first, but does anyone know the efficiencies of outsourcing? I have managed many outsourced collaborations with minimal success. So the first 2 things that come to my mind is, that's a great question to put into one of our communities in the discussion forum, and perhaps put it in the Drug Safety Executive Council one as a start. And if you want to engage more on this issue, you might want to talk to our community manager, Janine Hawley, about doing a webinar on this topic. My quick answer to it, the second part, I have managed many outsourced collaborations with minimal success. I would say deliverables, 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 just like in retail, it's location, location, location. But we've managed, like as I said before, over 20 collaborative projects, not necessarily collaborative outsourcing, but for us, making sure you have deliverables and you're on top of people and you know what the expectations are from the outset is really, and not to say that whoever asked this question didn't do the same thing, but it is a tricky way to move forward. You want to have a good positive relationship, but you also want to make sure that people are held to task from that perspective. So I'm sure lots of people have other answers and other ideas, and but we could probably move that one to our community and a webinar, but unless you want to add something there, Brian.
I guess I will just make a quick comment, and certainly I understand exactly where this person is coming from in terms of using an outsourced partner and having minimal success, and I guess from what I haven't worked in a large major consulting firm like BCG or McKinsey, but what I've heard from folks that I've spoken to who've done projects with them is oftentimes at the very early stages you're talking to either a business development person or a scientific director or a senior level person, but as soon as you sign the agreement, send your first check, you're then talking to someone at a much lower level, and so the passing of the communication oftentimes gets dropped. And hopefully I was able to describe earlier how our team is really involved throughout the entire process. And so the communication is very solid in our opinion throughout the entire process. And so a lot of these details in terms of the initial needs of our clients as well as all the deliverables, they get passed through very efficiently, and ultimately we believe that it makes for a much better outcome for all of our clients, the fact that you're able to talk to the same people throughout the same throughout your engagement.
Great. I know we're almost running out of time, so if there's any questions we haven't gotten to that anyone would like to ask us about later, we definitely would encourage you to just send us a quick email. Maybe, Brian, if you can go to the last slide, it'll put up there my email address. We also would encourage you to fill out the survey, there's a whole bunch of specific questions, and I'll just read a bunch of them out, Brian, and let you answer one or two of them. So how long does the marketing research process usually take? Does cold calling help to improve your database to improve CHA? And what is the price range of CHA consulting services? Example, please. So I know there's even more questions that I didn't ask, but if you want to just maybe comment on one or two of those items, Brian, that would be great, and then we'll have to wrap it up.
Okay, let's see here. So the marketing, I guess the first question was how long does the marketing research process usually take? It really depends on each engagement. Some of the projects I've defined included kind of a first stage where we're actually working with your team on site, where then we move into expert interviews and then kind of an industry survey. Some of those projects can take 3 or 4 months. But we also, each of those components, there might be value for certain companies where we just do one of those components, in which case, it can take a few days or a few weeks, for some of those components. So really, our goal, today is really to give an overview of what we do, and hopefully have a conversation with anyone who's interested, so we can really step back and understand what you currently experience in your organization, what are your challenges, and what do we have to offer that could help you be successful. And so with that, we design a project that we think would help you. And so we'd love to have that conversation after today's webinar. Does cold calling help to improve their database to promote CHA? I wonder if maybe that's a comment based on our, from the conferences side of the business, there is the telemarketing group. We are not from the consulting practice, the CHA practice. We are not conducting cold calls to build our database. We're just simply leveraging folks who've already been filtered into the database. And of course, oh, I'm sorry, the cost range. I'm surprised it took this long for that question to come out. It really, again, it varies based on the scope of each project, based on the deliverables. We've done some very, very small kind of focused projects with some companies that have just been a couple of tens of thousands. We've done some very major projects which have gone well into the 6 figures, and that kind of thing. So again, we would just love to after today have the opportunity to speak with you for 30 minutes or so via phone and understand what your needs are and how we can help you overcome those challenges and go from there.
Great. Well, thanks, Brian, and thank you all for having participated today. We really appreciate you spending the time with us to go over these case studies, and we've enjoyed the questions that you sent in, and as Brian said, we'd love to hear from you and be able to answer any specific questions. And hopefully we'll meet you at a conference or meet you in your city soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day. Bye.